Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we bring you a story full of suspense, mystery, and intense drama. This story revolves around the mysterious disappearance of CEO Toan and the untold secrets surrounding his family. Tuan's mother, Mrs. Ngok, suddenly fled abroad, and troubling clues about her dangerous connections are slowly being uncovered. The police and international law enforcement agencies are collaborating to find any leads on Tuan's disappearance. Is Mrs. Ngok directly involved in her son's vanishing? Is she hiding something? And what about Tuan? Is he still alive? All these questions are waiting for answers. Join us as we follow this thrilling investigation, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss any exciting updates in this story. The truth will gradually be revealed, and you'll be the first to witness it. CEO Tuan's mother, Mrs. Ngok, who had been held in custody at a temporary detention facility, suddenly escaped one night, shocking both the public and the police. Her disappearance only made the case more complicated and puzzling than ever. Investigators immediately realized that this was no simple matter, and that it could be directly related to Tuan's disappearance. The police immediately launched a manhunt for Mrs. Ngok and reopened the investigation into Tuan's disappearance, as his whereabouts remain unknown despite several efforts from the authorities. However, when Mrs. Ngok escaped, the police noticed a clear connection between her and the disappearance of her son. According to the investigation, the police found a witness, a neighbor who lived near Diem's house. This person testified that one night, Mrs. Ngok, along with two unknown thugs, had arrived at Diem's house. The witness claimed to have seen Mrs. Ngok standing outside the house with the two men, seemingly in a tense conversation. After a while, Mrs. Ngok and the men hurriedly left. The witness couldn't make out the details of their conversation, but the way they left created a suspicious impression. This information startled the police. On one hand, Mrs. Ngok had always claimed that she knew nothing about her son's disappearance. But on the other hand, she was seen at Diem's house, someone who was closely connected to Toan. This raises the question, does Mrs. Ngok actually know something about her son's disappearance? Or is she deliberately hiding something that only she knows? The police grew even more suspicious when they noticed the coincidence between Mrs. Ngok's appearance at Diem's house and Toan's disappearance. Mrs. Ngok should have been the one who knew the most about where her son might have gone, but the truth was completely different. To investigate further, the police requested additional information about the two men who were with Mrs. Ngok. They quickly identified them and uncovered a surprising connection. Both were involved in illegal activities within the business world and had criminal records. This raised even more doubts about Mrs. Ngok's ties to underground forces. Mrs. Ngok's escape was not just a personal action, but could be part of a larger conspiracy, with Toan potentially being the main victim. The police continued their investigation, trying to unravel this complex web, hoping that new evidence would help them uncover the truth behind CEO Toan's disappearance. Meanwhile, Toan's absence only intensified the worries and confusion among everyone. Diem couldn't sit idly by. She sensed that something was wrong and was determined to do whatever it took to find the man she loved. But would she be able to find Toan before it's too late? After receiving information from the witness about CEO Toan's mother visiting Diem's house with two thugs, the police decided to expand the investigation. They began interviewing Toan's friends, colleagues, and close connections to learn more about his relationships before his disappearance. One of the crucial interviews was with Diem Toan's girlfriend. She was the only one who could provide the most intimate details about the events leading up to Toan's disappearance. Diem started her statement to the police. "I remember that day clearly." Diem began, her voice trembling slightly. "It was a normal day, and I was at Toan's farm. That's where we usually meet. In the afternoon, I saw Toan's mother arrive along with two men I'd never seen before. They looked intimidating and acted very strangely. At first, I didn't think much of it, but after a while, when Toan's mother spoke to them, I began to feel something was off." The police officer carefully took notes on Diem's testimony. She continued, "When they went inside the house, I stood a little farther away and heard raised voices. Then Toan's mother said something to me, asking me to leave the farm. She even told me not to see Toan again. It felt very strange, and I didn't understand why she treated me like that." The police listened closely to every detail Diem provided. "I left, but for some reason I had a bad feeling. I just knew that after that I never saw Toan again, and he disappeared." Diem wiped away a tear, her eyes filled with worry. Her testimony only made the investigation more complicated. According to Diem's description, Toan's mother had come to his farm with two thugs, possibly involved in shady activities that Toan may have gotten entangled in. The fact that Toan's mother asked Diem to leave only fueled the police's suspicion that Mrs. Ngok might have been deliberately hiding the truth about her son. The police continued investigating the two men who had accompanied Toan's mother. One of them had a criminal record related to illegal activities. This raised more doubts about their connection to Toan's disappearance. Why did Toan's mother want Diem to leave the farm and not allow her to see Toan anymore? One officer asked, continuing to take notes. Diem looked up, her eyes filled with fear. "I don't know, but I felt like she didn't want me to have anything to do with Toan. After that day, I couldn't reach him. His phone was out of service and I had no idea where he was." Diem's statement deepened the police's concern about Toan's situation. Could it be that Toan's mother was trying to interfere with his relationship with Diem? And could she have reasons behind Toan's disappearance that had yet to be revealed? The investigation continued. The police had gathered enough information and evidence to uncover the complex relationships within Toan's family, as well as hidden secrets. However, despite the new leads, Toan's disappearance remained a big mystery, and his mother still played a key role in uncovering the truth. Diem was determined not to give up. She began her own investigation into what Toan and his mother might have been involved in, hoping to find a way to get her love back. In a remote place amidst the vast fields of the countryside, CEO Toan is living a life completely different from the busy days of the business world. No longer a powerful, ambitious man, he is now a stranger with amnesia, quietly living with an elderly woman in a peaceful farm. His life now is so different. Every morning when the first rays of sunlight appear, Tuan wakes up with a stiff, tired body and an empty mind. He doesn't remember who he is or how he ended up here. All memories of his past life, his days as the CEO of a large company, his relationships, and Diem, the woman he loved, are all wiped clean from his mind. Everything is just a blank space, a sheet of paper with nothing written on it. The elderly woman he lives with is kind and gentle, tending to the garden and crops. She never asks about Toan's past. she quietly takes care of him as though he were her own son. They live together in a small cozy house surrounded by rice fields, far from the noise of the city. His life revolves around simple farming tasks, but they bring him a strange sense of peace, even though his memory is gone. Each day, Toan wakes up with the elderly woman and starts the day with chores in the garden. He helps her harvest vegetables, plant crops, and care for the plants. These tasks, though far from the complexities of business meetings or large transactions, give Tuan a peculiar sense of tranquility. He doesn't know why he's here, but these tasks make him feel as if he is doing something right. Every time he walks into the garden, holding the hoe in his hand, Tuan feels like he's contributing in some way, and that boosts his confidence a little, even though his memory hasn't returned. The elderly woman who has taken him in as her son while he has lost his memory stays close to him through every task. She is kind and gentle, her eyes full of worry whenever she sees Tuan lost in vague thoughts, as if he is trying to remember something important, but cannot. She never asks about his past, just quietly taking care of him one meal and one nap at a time, hoping that one day Tuan will find himself again. One day, Tuan and the elderly woman went to harvest potatoes in a corner of the garden. He bent down using a shovel to dig out the ripe potatoes. When the shovel struck the earth, a strange feeling stirred within him. There was something familiar about it, as if he had done this many times before. A vague memory flashed through Toan's mind, but it quickly faded like thin smoke in the wind. He couldn't remember. The elderly woman saw him freeze, her face filled with concern. "Are you okay, Tuan?" She asked, her voice as gentle as the autumn breeze. Tuan looked up and forced a smile. "I'm fine, Grandma. It's just, I feel like I've done this before." He said, his gaze focused on the potatoes lying on the ground, but it seemed like he was looking at something far away, something just out of reach. She didn't say anything more, just quietly continued working, but in her eyes, Tuan could feel her worry. He didn't understand why, but it seemed like she knew he was trying to remember something important. Something that made her heart ache to see him like this. Tuan couldn't recall his distant memories, but he still felt a strange connection to this place, to these tasks. He couldn't remember his name, didn't know who his family was, but he could feel a small joy when he saw the green plants, when he touched the earth beneath his hands. This life, though quiet and far from the hustle and bustle of the outside world, gave Tuan a strange sense of peace. It was here, in this small house, in this farm, that he felt alive, even though he had no memory of his past. During breaks, sitting on the porch, Tuan looked out at the vast rice fields, listening to the wind rustling through the leaves. He felt light, yet there was a deep emptiness that couldn't be filled. He didn't remember his family, didn't remember those he had loved. Everything seemed to fade from his mind. The elderly woman, as if understanding Tuan's thoughts, sat beside him and gently patted his shoulder. "You'll remember, Tuan. In time, you'll remember everything." Tuan smiled faintly, but deep inside, he wasn't sure if he would ever remember it all. He only knew that here in this small house on this farm, he felt peaceful, hoping that one day all his memories would come back. But could he ever find himself again and discover what he had lost? Tuan's life now revolves around simple tasks, yet the mystery of his past remains an unsolved puzzle. And no matter how long he lives like this, the truth about himself still feels distant. Something out of reach. After CEO Toan's mother unexpectedly fled the country, the police began to realize that her disappearance was far from simple. Her silence and sudden actions raised suspicions about what she might be hiding. Tuan's mother, who had previously appeared kind and protective of her son, had now become a mysterious figure, possibly linked to Tuan's disappearance. As a result, the authorities quickly coordinated with international law enforcement agencies to track her down and clarify any suspicions. Cooperation with international police. The Vietnamese police requested assistance from Interpol, the international police, to monitor Mrs. Ngoc as she left the country. The disappearance of CEO Tuan further complicated the case, and the authorities could not overlook any clues. Initial reports indicated that Mrs. Ngoc had left to Vietnam and arrived in an Eastern European country. Through international communication channels, the police tracked her flight details, and further evidence showed that she had stayed at a luxury hotel in the capital of an undisclosed country. The police also received reports from international agencies that Mrs. Ngoc had changed her contact details and was living in a discreet manner, leaving no trace of where she was staying. Investigators began deploying extensive measures to investigate her connections to dangerous individuals and organizations she may have been involved with before she left. Uncovering mysterious connections, the Vietnamese police began gathering important information about Mrs. Ngoc's relationships, which she had kept secret. These relationships were not just with ordinary friends, but also with individuals involved in illegal and dangerous activities. Preliminary investigations revealed that Mrs. Ngoc had ties to individuals with dark pasts, people connected to lawsuits, power struggles in the business world, and even possible connections to organized crime. One name that stood out was Victor, a Russian man currently living in an Eastern European country. Victor was one of the secret business partners Tuan had met before his disappearance. According to investigators, Victor was involved in several large lawsuits and was suspected of being involved in illegal transactions in the international real estate sector. Mrs. Ngoc seemed to have kept this relationship a secret, and no one in Tuan's family or among his friends knew about Victor. Through investigations, the police discovered that Mrs. Ngoc had met Victor multiple times at high-end hotels in Europe. Although there wasn't much concrete evidence about these meetings, their phone conversations had been recorded through international surveillance systems. Gradually, a picture began to emerge. Mrs. Ngoc might be hiding a complicated relationship and could be involved in dangerous activities that she wanted to keep hidden. Investigating the involved individuals. During the investigation, the police also discovered other connections that Mrs. Ngoc might have been maintaining. These individuals were not just business partners, but also people with criminal behavior, showing signs of links to organized crime and suspicious financial transactions. One such group was involved in money laundering and international drug trafficking. These connections led the police to believe that Mrs. Ngoc was not just a worried mother, but could also be part of a larger criminal network. One of the key details discovered was suspicious financial transactions between Mrs. Ngoc and a shell company abroad. According to the investigation, this company was closely linked to international financial organizations, and Mrs. Ngoc had been conducting transactions through hidden accounts. These transactions were carried out before her escape and could be connected to a large sum of money part of which may have been used to cover up Tuan's disappearance. The police also received information from surveillance sources that Mrs. Ngok had been moving from city to city, always changing her payment methods, trying to conceal her presence. All of this suggested that Mrs. Ngok was not just an ordinary mother, but could be part of a larger plan possibly involving international organizations that she didn't want to expose. The investigation journey. As the investigation continued, the police discovered that Mrs. Ngok had met with influential figures in the international business world. These meetings, although not public, contained many secrets that Mrs. Ngok had been trying to hide. It became clear that not only her escape, but also these hidden relationships were making the investigation more difficult and challenging. The police asked for international assistance to track Mrs. Ngok's movements, hoping to uncover clues about Toan's whereabouts and the real reason why his mother fled. International cooperation became more crucial than ever, as Mrs. Ngok had fled to a foreign country and was trying to hide under various forms. Meanwhile, Diem Tuan's girlfriend continued her search for him. She refused to give up hope and began investigating on her own, looking into information that the police might have overlooked. Diem hoped that one day she would find Toan and uncover the secrets behind his disappearance. The investigation into CEO Toan's disappearance has become increasingly complex, with new developments and suspicions emerging. Despite relentless efforts by the police, Tuan's mother continues to evade capture, making every lead seem to reach a dead end. However, crucial clues have started to surface, and with the support of international law enforcement, the authorities are determined not to let the case fade into oblivion. Uncovering new clues. After receiving information about Mrs. Toan's meetings with shady individuals abroad, the police began focusing on her unusual connections with international organizations. One of the key developments was a secret bank account that Mrs. Toan had been using. According to the investigation, this account had been receiving frequent unexplained transfers. However, a recent check revealed that the account had been transferred and its trace erased, making further investigation difficult. The police also received a report from Interpol about Mrs. Toan attending an international real estate conference where she met an important figure named Victor. Victor is a major player in the international real estate sector and has been linked to illicit activities such as money laundering and international drug trafficking. It appears that Mrs. Toan and Victor had cooperated on several large projects before she left Vietnam. However, Victor's involvement has raised even more questions. Why would Mrs. Toan choose to cooperate with someone like Victor? Could she have ties to international criminal organizations? And is Toan somehow involved in these activities? New leads on Toan's whereabouts. While the police continued their investigation into Mrs. Toan and her dangerous connections, an interesting development occurred. A witness from the city where Toan had disappeared reported seeing a man who resembled Toan in a cafe on the outskirts of town, acting strangely as if he didn't recognize himself. The witness confirmed that the man appeared to be searching for something, but couldn't recognize anyone around him. When the police checked the surveillance footage from the cafe, they found a short clip showing the man. Although his face was somewhat blurred, the actions in the video led the police to suspect that this could be Toan. Several identifying features, such as the watch Toan always wore and his familiar sneakers, appeared in the video, suggesting it was indeed him. However, Toan's memory loss prevented the police from confirming this. Questions about the relationship between Mrs. Toan and Diem. In addition to the search for Toan, the police also looked into the relationship between Mrs. Toan and Diem. During their investigation, the police uncovered several phone calls and messages exchanged between Mrs. Toan and Diem before Toan's disappearance. Although Mrs. Toan had always denied any involvement with Diem, the messages revealed discussions about Toan and Diem's relationship, and it seemed that Mrs. Toan did not approve of it. Another witness from Toan's company testified that Mrs. Toan had met with Diem privately and warned her not to continue the relationship with her son. This raised further suspicions about whether Mrs. Toan genuinely wanted to protect her son or was trying to stop him from being involved with someone she disapproved of. Did Mrs. Toan have a role in Toan's disappearance because she didn't want him to be with someone she deemed unworthy, or was there another reason? Discovering new connections. The police continued working with international law enforcement agencies, expanding their investigation into criminal organizations that Mrs. Toan may have been involved with. The latest information confirmed that Victor and several other individuals were involved in illegal activities within the international real estate sector. The shady financial transactions linked to shell companies that Mrs. Toan was behind further fueled suspicions that she was participating in these organizations. The police continued tracking the flow of money, trying to uncover connections between Mrs. Toan and those involved in international criminal activities. Her escape abroad had not only complicated the investigation, but also exposed a vast network that could be linked to fraud and even organized crime. The investigation continues. The investigation continues with a series of complex and unexpected developments. Mrs. Toan remains in hiding with no clear traces of her whereabouts. Together with international cooperation, the authorities are more determined than ever to dive deeper into the case and uncover the truth about Toan's disappearance. The scattered pieces of Mrs. Toan's life, her underground connections, are slowly coming together, forming a blurry yet increasingly suspicious picture. New leads on Toan's whereabouts. One day, the police received an important lead from Interpol. Sources in an Eastern European country reported that a man resembling CEO Toan had been spotted in a suburban area. While it wasn't certain, this new information brought a renewed sense of hope to the investigation. Although the traces of Toan were still faint, it seemed like the pieces were starting to fall into place. Investigators immediately checked the video footage from the surveillance cameras in the area. In the video, the man appeared fatigued, looking around as if searching for something but unable to recognize himself. The video was blurry, but some familiar identifying features were visible, such as the watch Toan usually wore and other recognizable details. While this information wasn't enough to confirm that it was Toan, the police decided to pursue the lead further. They contacted local authorities and requested continued surveillance of the area. Every trace of this man would be carefully followed up. Meanwhile, Toan's close friends, colleagues, and people who worked with him were also interviewed to gather more information about anyone who might have helped Toan or have knowledge of his disappearance. Despite their efforts, none of them could provide any further details about where Toan might be. The complex relationship between Mrs. Toan and Victor. The police continued to delve deeper into the connections between Mrs. Toan and individuals potentially linked to Toan's disappearance. Mrs. Toan was not just a protective mother. She might have known secrets that she had kept hidden and could be connected to international criminal activities. One of the suspicious relationships was with Victor, the man Mrs. Toan met before leaving Vietnam. Victor was a mysterious figure with ties to several international criminal organizations. Mrs. Toan's connection with Victor indicated involvement in shady financial dealings, including large unexplained transfers between countries. The police realized that Mrs. Toan could be involved in an international criminal network linked to drug trafficking and money laundering. These financial transactions could have led to a situation where Tuan became trapped and Mrs. Toan tried to cover up the truth. It seemed likely that Tuan's disappearance was part of her efforts to protect herself and the secrets behind these transactions. One important discovery was that Mrs. Toan and Victor may have collaborated on illegal deals before Tuan went missing. This raised suspicions that Tuan could have been involved in dangerous situations that his mother didn't want him to know about. Facing the truth, the police began focusing on learning more about who Mrs. Tuan had been in contact with during Tuan's disappearance. Her phone calls, emails, and other communications could hold important clues. One recorded phone call revealed a conversation with someone named Sergio, a figure linked to international financial activities. The exchanges between Mrs. Toan and Sergio suggested that she might have been hiding a large sum of money related to illegal activities. The police continued working with international agencies to track down any information related to Sergio and the organizations he was connected to. The investigation was far from easy, as all leads were concealed and the organizations involved had the ability to erase traces. However, each investigation and each small clue brought renewed hope to Diem's search. While the police continued their investigation into Mrs. Toan's relationships and traces, Diem never stopped searching for Tuan. She felt that something was wrong and was determined not to lose hope. She decided to investigate on her own, even going to places Tuan had visited before his disappearance. One morning, Diem decided to visit Tuan's farm again. She didn't realize that she was stepping into a dangerous investigation. Even though she hadn't been able to contact him for a long time, she still felt a familiar presence here. She sensed Tuan's presence somewhere, even though he had been missing all this time. She wandered around the land, her eyes focused on small signs that the police might have overlooked. When she walked near the garden, she found a handkerchief that Tuan had often used. It was lying on the ground near the spot where he used to sit and rest. Although these traces weren't enough to confirm Tuan's whereabouts, they gave Diem a glimmer of hope that he was still alive. The investigation continues. The police continue to work tirelessly to uncover the final clues about Tuan and why his mother fled. While some aspects of the case are becoming clearer, the investigation has yet to yield a definitive answer. Is Tuan still alive? Is his mother directly involved in his disappearance? The answers are still unknown, but the investigation will not stop. With cooperation between domestic and international agencies, hope for a clear resolution remains intact. Tuan may have gone missing due to a complex situation, but justice and the truth will never be buried.
Đi thêm một đoạn, đôi chân mỏi nhừ, nặng cho cơ thể. Cô không thể tiếp tục đi nữa, đành phải dừng lại nghỉ ngơi, ngồi xuống. Cô tự hỏi mình đã đi bao lâu, liệu Hà có tìm thấy cô không? Liệu anh có còn trong rừng cùng cô? Cô cảm thấy lạc lõng, không biết không thể